What's up, y'all? LTA Reads is here. This is Throwing Light. And if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. Before we get started, remember, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get all these Throwing Light interviews. We've been doing the Throwing Light tour. I'm headed to San Francisco this weekend to continue bringing people together around our nation and hopefully around the world. Also, I have a couple of projects I'm working on. I'm be working on a documentary for the Texas leather community. I've got a horror film I'm working on. I've got some music videos and a lot of stuff coming this year. I'm so excited. So just go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow Throwing Light, follow my projects as they come out this year. If you have any questions or how to get to YouTube, if you are watching this on YouTube, you can just go subscribe. If you're on Instagram, there is a link, or you can just simply just go to @LTJ is here on YouTube, like my Instagram, to get to it. With that being said, let's go ahead and kick it over to our guest, Sage Onyx, right here. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm in Texas, so not wonderful, but I'm surviving.
Well, people go to Texas for whatever reasons.
Well, right now it is a couple of degrees from being held. So the weather's warming up too, and they're acting crazy down here in Texas.
I
So
understand that.
how,
Oh, I thought acting crazy was part of what Texas does.
well, they got crazier, boo. Crazier. Crazy,
Okay.
crazy. So what's going on? What are you up to?
Well, getting ready for the season. There are a lot of new Onyx has been expanding, a lot of new chapters. I want to visit some of the new chapters this season. And also we've had a couple of deaths in the Onyx family around the country, but trying to support one another and try to make sure everything moves forward.
Yeah, right on. So, I definitely want to talk about your legacy now, but how did you first get involved and what brought you to this journey?
Let's see. I have been involved in Onyx now for the last 10, 12 years, and I've been involved in the leather community for about, or interest in the leather community for about 30. Um, I had a first fleeting interest in it and seeing what was happening, but I was very vanilla. I was very much um, monogamous, very much into not having any extracurricular activities. Really a serial monogamy. I dated you, we had a relationship. If there's something happened, we broke up, I would start a new relationship. But it wasn't about, um, it was years before I had my first threesome or anything like that. And so being the explore and the leather community really helped me to explore my other side, my kink side, and gave me permission to try new things. So yeah, it's been a while, and then I put my toe in and other parts and other body parts as the show went, and one thing led to another, and I knew some people in the leather community from my early days in Washington, D.C., when I lived in D.C. in the early 80s. So some of them gave me a primer. And then I moved to San Francisco later on in my life, and that really opened up my world.
So, you said you were a serial monogamous and you said that you would just go from relationship to relationship. Is there like, were, I know you're recording, but you were never able to date yourself? When you were alone, you never wanted to be by yourself. You just wanted to be with someone all the time from relationship to relationship.
Actually, yeah, because I saw my parents were together for over 50 years. I saw myself as being partnered and always having somebody. When I came out as gay, it was like I wanted to have a boyfriend. It wasn't about just out there having sex with everybody. And it was very early in my life when a lot of gay men said, part of being gay was the freedom to have lots of boyfriends or doing things. And that wasn't my mentality. My first dates with men were like my dates with girls. I was chivalrous. I took them out. I picked them up. I picked up the check. I opened car doors. I listened to your feelings and was a good boyfriend. That's how I was with women, and I was the same way with men. And till I saw that men, especially in the gay community, weren't always like that. And so it was really a transition for me knowing about the leather community and the freedom and trying new things. That took a while for me to get used to that.
And look, we're this world is wired a certain way. It's based
Hmm.
on a bunch of human choices.
Yep.
Relationships and marriage and things like that. I hate the word tradition because your tradition doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean
Right.
it's fair. But it was a tradition to hang people, back in,
Absolutely.
saying
And that's
like
all you
that's
knew. That's all we knew.
you
And
know.
that's why I say it opened my eyes up to saying there are other ways of doing this kind of stuff. And that was really, really important for me to say there were other ways and accepting those other ways. And even though in the early days, I didn't, as we say, didn't yuck anybody else's young, but that wasn't for me at first. And then until I opened up myself to try some new things and try some new experiences. And as I opened it, I was gung-ho into it. I really embraced it and took advantage of it.
I think, and maybe for heterosexual, because they think the institution of marriage is being all that, and that marriage is love and all this. And let me tell
Right.
you, my parents, I grew up in an abusive home with my father. He was an alcoholic. He gambled. My mom was big into church. She
Hmm.
used that to try to protect me. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so, I growing up, when I got my first serious relationship because of that abuse and because of staying and enduring, I thought that's what I needed to do.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I was putting myself in abusive relationships and being like, well, the love is the hard work. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, but I don't know how I feel about that now. And being in this community, like you said, relationships need to be discussed by the individuals in the relationship
Absolutely.
and everything, but everyone else needs to stay out of that.
Absolutely.
And go ahead.
No, and I think until you learn that each relationship is different and people only know what they know. You know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And until you know, like for you, abuse was a different form of love. That's
Yeah.
how people show their love. I've heard people say, I've heard women say that if he doesn't smack you around sometime, I don't think he's interested. And it's like you don't know that you could be in a relationship without a man beating on you. Really?
Right,
Oh my
right.
God! I thought you're supposed to get the man.
Isn't that
I've heard girls that
crazy?
say I
Crazy.
would pester him so he would hit me, so I know that he was still interested. Because if he didn't hit me no more, that meant he was on to somebody else. So I understand that. That's all they knew, and I think that leather opened up my eyes to saying there's several ways to have relationships, and that one way is not perfect for everybody. What you do in your relationship is works for you. What I do in my relationship works for me. And I think in our dynamics now, as being a daddy that has boys or sons, it is very different for me versus have somebody who I'm in a one-on-one monogamous relationship with. That's a very different lifestyle now.
Mhm. As a mentor, how do you navigate people that come to you that are trying to explore their sides? How do you guide them?
Well, I try to, it's somewhat similar to what we're having now, this conversation. I think a lot of people don't know exactly what they want, and they need some help and support to say, I thought about this, but I don't know how to get that. Now, let me not even say they don't know what they want. A lot of people know what they want, they don't know how to get what they want. So if you want to be in a dynamic that says you are a dom and a sub, or you are a master and a slave, or a satyr and a masochist. There are things that you can do to get that, but if you don't know how to articulate that, especially in our community, then you'll get something else. Or you just watch somebody else. You don't know how to say, I like that part, but I don't like this part. And I think until you understand the freedom and the structure, because I think you need structure with freedom that one can have, then you don't actually always get what you need or get what you want the way you want it.
I am fascinated at structure and freedom. Can you go into that a little bit more?
For example, having a boy that doesn't live in the same city I live in. there are things that we structure around what he does and what I do, and how we respond to one another. Times, how many times we communicate, what our communication is like, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, so on and so forth. Those are things that structure. But because I'm not there 24/7 to watch him, or he's not on a leash and so on and so forth, that he has some freedom to do certain things. Now, the communication is the part that connects us so that it gives us a vehicle to talk about what's important, what you need, what's valuable to you, what's not as important to you. All that happens through the communication process. And it's not always just verbal. It's verbal, it's nonverbal, it's written, it's gifts, it's all kinds of things that make our communication special. But that is the structure with the freedom. The freedom, because they could be doing all kinds of things and not tell me. But is that the kind of relationship you want? That your relationship with somebody that you have to lie to on a regular basis?
You shouldn't have to lie. You can't have that
Right,
relationship.
right. So if you say I want to be in a dynamic with you, and you live and I live in New York and you live in Texas, no, I don't have a bell on you or a camera on your waist to see what you do every day. But if I can trust you, then we don't have a basis for our relationship.
All the big over word here is communication, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's a big thing. And trust,
Trust and honesty. If you're not going to tell the people the truth, then why bother?
while getting in the relationship.
And why be in a relationship? That's why I think that so many people out of the leather community, they're so used to doing things that they want to do and lying about it that the idea of being honest about it scares them. And I tell you the truth, and you get to have your feelings the way you want to have your feelings. You can accept what I tell you, or you can say this doesn't work for me. Okay, then what can we renegotiate? Can we realign? Maybe not. Maybe this is not the relationship that's best for you. Who knows?
And like you go into straight people and and non-African American people too, they go into these marriages and their identity. That I don't I see people give up their identities or their selves. And I don't, this is tricky. It's like, do you sacrifice a part of yourself for someone? But where we're learning in our community is you don't have to sacrifice any aspect of yourself, as long as you're communicating who you are and what you want.
Right. And I think that's the challenge for a lot of vanilla non-kink people, that they don't know how to be honest about. Guess what? When I met you 2 years ago, I thought I wanted this, but over time, I find I also, not that I want to get rid of you, but I also want to add this to our relationship. Are you okay with that? Are you not okay with that? What does that look like for you? So on and so forth. Those are real questions you can have with your partner, and hopefully in our community. Whereas a lot of people in the non-kink community are not willing to have those honest discussions about what I used to like. I only like that 80% of the time now. I also want to try something else, or I want to add this onto our repertoire. A lot of folks that are not ready to do
Uh, Funny little side story. I wrote a story called Two Virgins Don't Make a Right.
that.
And it's about like just not knowing anything. You know
Not
what I'm
knowing
saying? And
anything.
not even knowing what sex. So many people go into relationships and get married and have no clue what sex really is, or how you share that, or how you explore that. And it's crazy when you really step back and look at people that just fall into the system, you lose yourself.
Right.
And
Or
so
you think that I have to
submit is a good
submit
word.
to myself for you to like me. If I tell you who I really am, you may not love me or want me anymore. So I won't tell you the truth. And it's like, well, do you want to be with somebody that you can't be your true self with?
Think about it. How many marriages do you think they're hiding? Like that is a common thing. And if you don't think,
Yes.
anybody watching the show doesn't think you, so many spouses are hiding so much
So many
stuff about each
secrets.
other. And
So many
that's a
secrets.
baby, I will put so much money in bank, it's a high percentage. Like because we're scared to express who we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so hopefully as a daddy and a mentor, I tell people you have to be honest with yourself first, and the people who you pull into your atmosphere, your world, your realm. If they're not ready to say, I like these things about you, and these eight things outweigh the three things that I don't like, then maybe you're not the person for me. Or those three things have so much weight to them that they are unattainable for me and I can't do this with you. And that's fine, but you need to be honest about what's important to you and what's not important to you. If you need somebody, like you don't own somebody's genitals, those are not your genitals. Come here, come here. Where you going? Give me that penis. You're not going out tonight without that penis. You can't do that to somebody. So, folks don't have that luxury. So the idea that they're having sex with other people and you have nothing to do with it, it's not like they're a bad person.
And
But
that's the thing. You know how much, I've struggled with my morality about just what sex is. I grew up, look, I was there at the transition. I grew up in the transition between no internet and internet. And when
uh-huh,
internet, I discovered, my mom got me my first computer when I was in the seventh grade, when internet, like 1997, and that there was we didn't have instructions for the internet, and that's what people need to understand. When we
right,
were on it, it was new, we were everything, and it just seems like I got into a lot of things.
right,
My parents weren't home, and I explored and I learned things that I should have learned at home, things I should
absolutely.
have learned at school. You get what I'm saying? There are things
Dura.
that have
Mano,
happened to
domingo,
me.
essa
If
não foi
I
game.
had to give me 1 second, I don't know what that is.
That's Mufasa.
Oh, it's
Hey,
Mufasa.
hey
Okay.
Mufasa, how are you, sir?
Hey, Mufasa. Okay. Okay, cool. Feel free to say anything, Mufasa, or comment or whatever. Okay, where were we?
So you were in the beginning stages of where the internet became
Right.
popular and people were exploring all kinds of stuff. Absolutely.
I learned and let I look. It's funny we talk about king, but we people be doing kinky things. It doesn't matter. You got to be in the leather community. Me and my friends, we did some kinky stuff. As
Absolutely.
teenagers, exploring and things like that. I learned masturbation from a friend. And
Absolutely.
then it grew into a sexual relationship. I lost my virginity very young. I was 12 when I lost my virginity, and the person I lost it to was 13. But we kept that relationship going, and we tried things. Now it wasn't a healthy relationship because he fell into drugs, but sex has always been a part of my life, and I've always felt, like when I was growing up, like something wrong with me. You know what I'm saying? Like why, but a lot of triggers happened to me. I was physically abused. I was molested. So I wonder sometimes, did that play into how I
Sure.
developed? You know what I'm saying?
And I think that for a lot of us, especially when we grow up, if we are very attractive or we're not as attractive, and I think it goes both ways, that people use sex as their currency, that you're beautiful, so everybody gives you attention, and you think as long as that people give me attention, that they love me, and so they use that. Or that people, the only way they showed affection to me is to take advantage of me. And so I think if I want that touch or that connection with people, I have to give them sex. That's very real for a lot of communities, that people don't know how to use that. And if that's all you have to get to barter with, then what happens when they don't want you sexually anymore? Are you no longer good to them? And I think that triggers for a lot of people. You talk about your friend in drugs. A lot of things happen with people in drugs and abuse and relationships because they don't know how to negotiate the changes that we go through as adults, as humans around sex and sexuality.
And like sex, it's just like sex is not this simple conversation. It's a complex thing that there's
Absolutely.
so many factors, and it's just amazing to how society makes us go into this very superficial idea of everything. Some people might think love is getting married to their high school
A sweetheart,
sweetheart,
right?
not ever dating anybody else. But you have to question: do they know? Do they know
They don't know
anything
what do
else?
you
Are
know?
they
Like you said,
curious?
would you say two versions don't make it right?
Virgins don't make
So,
it right.
so if I've never had sex with anybody and you never had sex with anybody and we get together and we don't know what we're doing and then say, oh, but I love them, like you don't know what it is because you never had sex with anybody else. I think a lot of men say that the idea of monogamy for them is to say, I'm gonna have sex with this person only for the rest of my life scares the bejesus out of people. And they go, is that all I want? But a lot of folks don't know how to negotiate different things. Or men have had 10 lovers, let's say between 15 and 20, 22, but girls have had two. So they want the women to be these Vestal virgins, whereas they want the man to have all the experience. And that doesn't make sense. And then it's the same thing with tops and bottoms. You come in and say the top because you have a nice sized penis does not mean that you know what to do with it.
Let the
That's a
church
longer
say
workshop.
amen. Let the
That's a
church
longer
say
workshop.
amen. Please continue. Pass the collection plate right now. So like okay, but so let's transition a little bit. So with Onyx, has there ever been a situation where you didn't know how to mentor somebody?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are times where as I develop myself, there are people who have more information than I do, or I didn't know where I was in that with that person. And I sometimes had to say, I can't help you. Maybe you need to talk to someone else who has helped me, and maybe they can help you. And I think there are people who have been attracted to me, and because of who I was, they use I want you to mentor me, or I want to get support from you, or I want to talk to you. Well, what they actually want is to have sex. And as opposed to saying, I want to have sex, they use that other avenue. And if I'm looking at you as somebody who is
That part.
looking as a mentee, and I'm trying to help you out in a situation, and every time I turn around, your hands on my leg, it's like, no, baby, that's not what we're here for. That's not what you're here for.
Because when I first got into the community and got involved with leather, I had a lot of people trying to get close to me, so they were trying to latch on things I was passionate about, but they were
Absolutely.
not. And so, I've had friends, and well, they're not friends because I've lost two friends because the initial meeting and agreement was that we're both interested in helping the community. I'm going to help you with these events because I believe in what you're doing. Not that you're doing this because you're trying to get in my business or you're trying to be
Mhm.
with me.
Or
And
get in your pants.
it's like being a traitor. It's like you find someone has betrayed you, you know,
Mhm.
when they're not there for you.
Right. And I think that people use that because so many people want like the adulation. So, if I'm around you all the time and I help you out all the time, and now that you're horny, of course you're going to choose me because I'm right there. And it's like, that's not how it works. Because you're there doesn't mean that that I'm gonna give it to you, and B, I'm attracted to you. But there are people who also use that as an opportunity that because he's available, I will give it to him. And knowing that they have no other interest in just that sexual release. But there are people who will do that. When I was growing up, I had older folks who were attracted to me because of who I was and things I did. And as I came out in the community, not only as a gay man, but later on in leather, my issue was not to be known as a dirty old man. And now that I'm a senior person in the community, there are men who are half my age who flirt with me. And I love the attention, but is it me you want, or is it some sort of
Clout.
idea of who I am that you want?
They want to be with you because of your reputation and
Right. And so it's like that's not why I'm here. And I can just and I can pick and choose or as my friends say, pick, choose, or refuse those people who that's not why I'm there. I'm not saying that you're not beautiful. I'm not saying that you're not sexy. I'm not saying that under other circumstances it might have worked. But that's not why I'm here for this situation.
uh,
And I can make the difference.
when we have a lot of people that think no is rejection.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? When someone says no, it's not about you. Or it could, I mean, it could be many factors. But when someone says no, you can't get butt hurt and go on a crusade and, start defaming somebody or just because you didn't get what you want. And we see that not just play out in this scenario, but if you look at the community at large, when people don't get their way, they do some shitty things. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And there, because we're being real here. There are several people in our community, just like any in the world, that use people. You know, and I'm always looking at people that are they're able to carry their own weight. You know what I'm saying?
What's that
And
saying that they say, hurt people hurt people?
yeah, yeah,
And
I
you know,
guess.
because I have no real way of communicating to you, I'm gonna lash out at you. Or because I had a shitty day, I make everybody day around me
I
equally as
don't
bad.
get people like that because I can control. Like I've seen people snap on someone. I'm like, you didn't have to do that.
Right. And but there's a lot of folks who won't call folks out. There are people who say, like, I had nothing to do with what happened before you got here. Don't bring that attitude in here. What you mean, baby?
Yeah,
Take
yeah,
that with you because we're not doing that in here today.
yeah. No,
And there are
no.
a lot of folks who won't call people on that. You know, I live in New York. People go off in the streets all the time. It's like,
Wow.
do I want to put up with that or don't? And we always say, oh, that's a mental health. I'm not excusing people who are on the spectrum or have mental health episodes. That's not the issue. But he knew not to walk in the middle of the street in front of that bus. So how come he didn't know not to talk to that man over there? Or you bothered a little guy who you think you could beat up or will be intimidated by you, but that big old mofo over in the corner, you don't say nothing to him because you have some discernment to say, I know better than that, or he may beat my ass. So there are people who do that too. But yeah, there's a lot of people in the community who will use anger, um, distrust, hurt that their hurtness to hurt other people, and it's not a good thing. And hopefully, as a elder statesman or a mentor in the community to some people, that we hopefully are able to make a difference for people and say this is not the way you want to go.
Well, here, let me tell you a secret that's not a secret because I'm about to tell you. Look, my Texas family, they know exactly who I don't want to work with.
Hmm.
They know. You can,
Hmm.
if someone knows me, they know who I will not work with, you
Hmm.
know, because of concerns.
Right.
You know,
Eh,
I don't like violence of any kind, including spitting, which is violence.
mhm.
So I don't like to hear about it. I don't like to, and I hate confirming it being true. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So, there are some things I can do, but you are not going to make me go in a room with someone that I have a philosophical moral difference with. I'm
Absolutely.
not going to sit here and pretend. I will not come. Let me remove myself. And that's what I've been doing
Right.
in some cases, being like, you know what? Go in that direction. Maybe I can help you later on in the future. But I'm not going to, I'm trying to enjoy the community work I do and make a difference. And if I got to go into an event and I can't enjoy myself, why am I there? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I get it. I get it. We're getting close to the end, and I have one question that I always ask at the very
Absolutely.
end. Is
Absolutely.
there any aspect of our community that you feel we are not shedding enough light on?
There's two actually I want to bring up.
Go for it.
One of them is that our community is more diverse than we want to talk about. And I think one of the things that we have a lot of people in our community now who are differently abled, and a lot of the spaces that we in don't accommodate them
True.
or not interested in them. And so as we look at where we spend money and spend time, if we have people in our communities who can't get into places because there's a fourth floor walk up, or because they have to negotiate stairs, or that there's no ramps, or there's only one entrance in and out, that may be a challenge for a lot of people. And so if you don't talk about those things, or spend your money and time in other places, then they won't know that they have to change some of those things. That's one thing. And then also, I think as an elder, I think there's a thing that people sometimes think that we're not full human beings anymore, and that we still have something to offer the community. Because I'm not having sex with everybody I meet does not mean that I'm not still sexual.
Mm. No.
I think that so much of our community is based on just passion and lust, and that there's a lot of stuff about connection and caring that is not talked about. And I think as older people, we want more than just, not saying that we don't want passion, but I think our connections are equally as valid for us. And I think those are the two things that I would think of, that we don't look at people as the older community as full, vibrant, contributing members of the community, and how we look at the differently abled in our community.
I think just real quick, I think from my experience so far, I think the two things you brought up, there are people there. It's like a minority of us talking about these issues. We're talking, and you can kind of, if you pay attention and if you watch, there are a few of us talking about these things, but it's not a large conversation
Right.
right now. And that's the thing. We don't we keep trying to be diverse that we forget that we have come so far in our diversity.
And we just
Um,
think, and when you say diversity, the first thing I think of is race. And race is important, but it's not
There's
just
so
race.
many things.
Yes,
So many things. I mean, well,
yes,
obviously gender, and then
yes.
so just so I was really happy because I found out today that my company is like there for transgender equality, and they don't like transgender discrimination. And it's just great with everything going on to just be at work and know that because I've went on the tour. They gave me 2 free days off to do the Throwing Light tour.
Mm,
Isn't that
that's great.
crazy? And I showed them, and they know I'm a leather person and everything.
That's a good thing.
So it's been really
But
cool.
if you weren't open about who you were, they wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And for a
When
lot of
I
people,
gave them the stuff, I was like, what are they going to think? Because it's like, me and my people in our leather gear and stuff. But they've been really cool. Didn't blink. I have an
absolutely.
an old man that I meet. He's probably like in his 70s, and we go sit and talk. He's an old white man. He's just like, you got a beautiful mind. And then I told him about what I was doing. He was like, thank you for sharing yourself with me. And I just thought that was such a cool thing because you never know who, when you sit and have a conversation, you make assumptions about people, but this is a cool man, and he really is in tune with the world and very accepting. So it's just nice. We forget because we get bogged down in the media and we see all that. That when you step back and put that away and you just go out in the world and interact with human beings, we're okay. We're okay when it's just us. You know what I'm saying?
And also that cool man is a cool man, even though you're not knocking boots.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that if I don't find you sexually appealing or physically attractive, that we discount folks. And it's like,
Yeah,
no,
that's
there's
very
still
true.
good people out there that I don't want to have sex with.
That's very true.
And so I think a lot of times, and I think for the vanilla community, so often they think everybody that we interact with is just based on sex. And when you tell them, no, I'm a full person and sex is only one part of who I am, not all of who I am, it's hard for them to understand that because they only know us as sexual beings or what they've seen in movies or read about and so on and so forth.
Stereotypes. And that's what me and the man talked about. So, all right,
Absolutely.
Sage, this has been a phenomenal interview. I thank you for giving me your time and doing this. Are you going to IML?
I will not be at IML this year, at which several people are disappointed with me. I have a conflict that I won't make it there this year, but I'm going to send my love to support to show a few people going.
Well, I'm hoping to come back to New York to do some more work.
Okay,
So I'm
we'll
gonna
definitely
keep.
when next time you're here, we'll definitely
Yeah,
have dinner or
we already
something.
talked because with the snowstorm and things. So I'm gonna do a back to New York panel probably next year,
Okay.
and we're gonna try to do it when it's not in January during a winter storm.
And you can wear less clothes and have a great
Hey, it
time.
wasn't that bad. I can say it was a unique way to start my year. Was in a New York snowstorm. So, all right. So there's one thing you have to do before I let you go. You got to
And what would
close the
that
show.
be?
So I'm gonna count to three, and when I count to three, you want to say if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. You ready?
If you're not doing what?
If
Okay,
you're
go ahead.
not,
I'm teasing you. Go ahead.
all right, one, two, three.
If you're not throwing light, you ain't acting right.
There we go.
Have a good day. Thank you,
Father
everybody.
Supreme has spoken.
Have a good night.
Thank you all so much for watching Throwing Light, and we will see you for the next episode.